Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, Director of Sales for Bona Adhesives.
I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training.
We're going to do a little floor talk today, so turn them sanders off. Take that edger, make sure you put that edger on the side. Put that scraper down, and let's talk a little bit about hardwood floors.
We've had to change our opening a little bit because our producer says that we've been coming in on our openings too hot.
A little too hot.
Yeah, so now we sound like the two women on the Saturday Night Live skit who were doing the PBS. What was the name of that skit? You remember that skit?
No.
Did you ever watch Saturday Night Live?
From time to time.
Oh, man. They did the sweaty balls. Do you remember that skit?
I've seen that on YouTube.
Yeah,
yes,
the Christmas balls. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not sure we can do that.
Oh man, what was the name of that?
Although
that's how they talk. They came in nice and easy, just like that.
Although you and I had a discussion about buying a new truck that had the seats with the air condition that came through the seats.
Yes.
Probably can't really talk too much about. But if you have never experienced a new vehicle that has air condition flowing through the seats, that's one of the greatest pleasures in life. That's good stuff. Okay.
Hey, this episode is going to be pretty cool. We did some interviews.
Mm-hmm.
We had the big flow launch at the New Jersey RTC this week. So talk about the who's who of wood flooring. Man, everybody was there.
Yeah, that was really cool. Really great day, and appreciate Jeff Alfredo and Gene Vincent and Mike Overy and Rob Johnson. And
I saw you threw my name in there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, coming down there. Yeah, I'd look out for you. Our episode today is going to be on how to handle pressure. This industry, it comes with the territory, and I remember watching. I'm not a golf guy at all, and I know you're not a golf guy, are you? You know golf?
Yeah, I do golf.
Okay. Do you remember Greg Norman when he had the most epic net meltdown of all time?
Yeah, I think that was 98,
96,
97,
96. Yeah. When he absolutely had, I think, a 5-stroke lead going into it, or maybe even more, and then lost.
I thought it was like 8. I mean, it was unbelievable. Everybody said going into the final day, I thought he had like a 6 or 8. I mean, I think it was more than 5. I think.
Yeah. He actually had a 6-shot lead, and he lost by 5 strokes. And they say it's one of the biggest chokes of all time. And here's how bad it was. When he finally lost, his opponent was crying and apologized for winning. And when the presenter handed the trophy to the winner, he apologized and said he felt terrible for Norman. And it's gone down as probably one of the biggest chokes of all time. And when you talk about choking, you're talking about pressure and learning to deal with pressure, especially in our industry. And as you said, Rob, we had some great interviews later on we're going to play. And I thought it was interesting what some of the older guys have been around a while, how they handle pressure today versus how they handled pressure years ago. But there's something that we've always, you handle pressure very well, though. Probably better than anybody I've ever met, actually.
I feel no pressure ever. I let everybody else worry about that.
Yeah.
I think you and I probably could have worked together pretty good, because you can't have 2 guys on the job who are crazy with pressure.
You can't have 2 guys that are hot.
Right.
Yeah. One of them's got to be the ground.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, though, Pete and I are a lot alike as far as pressure goes. So I don't know. I don't think we've really ever had any, because, I mean, you think I'm calm and cool. Sherman's even he takes it to a different level. Um, but you, working with my son now, I think you two are like pressure cookers.
Probably. Well, I'll tell you how I deal with pressure. When like if things get really, really, the pressure gets ramped up. I'll tell you how I deal with it. Um, and for me is you got to live in the moment. If you start thinking on a job of all the things that can go wrong and all the negative what ifs, if this doesn't go right, or if it doesn't get paid, or she doesn't like the color, or we can't meet the schedule, or whatever. If you start letting those things get in your head, then it just makes your life miserable. And I had a mantra for me, and which was one room at a time. And it really worked for me. It really helped take the pressure off, because if I'm on a 4,000 square foot job or whatever, now it's a problem if the whole job is one room, 4,000 square feet. But if it was broken up, like if I'm working in the living room right now, right now, at this moment, I'm working in the living room, then that's all I care about is that living room. I don't care about nothing else. I just focus on one thing. And that's helped me with that mantra of one room at a time, has helped me and staying in the moment and not getting into the what ifs type of conversations in your head, staying in the present, and not worried about the ultimate success or failure of the job. So
Now, I thought you handled pressure a different way. Like opening up door, throwing T-bars across the floor. Or
that too.
didn't you throw something in the water one time or something
But
like that?
but I do that in the moment. You know what I mean? I don't
That's
think
the
that's in the moment thing.
that's the
Yeah.
release.
Yes.
That's
yes.
the release
yes.
of the pressure.
Yes.
You dealt with it so you could hold on to it and then release it.
What I like to do is spread the pressure throughout to everybody, so they all feel the pressure. Yeah.
Why should you just be choking on that?
I
Give it
call
up
it
to everybody else.
Yes, I call it sense of urgency. So it changes the, you know what I mean? It changes the whole. It's not pressure, guys. It's sense of urgency. You need to feel the sense of urgency.
Right.
But you know something? I'm joking around about that a little bit, but I'll tell you something that there's a little trick you can do. And for instance, by just changing a single word around, instead of saying like I'm nervous about this. For instance, when I used to do public speaking, well, I still do public speaking, but in the early days when I get nervous about it, I learned if you change the word nervous to excited, it just does something in your head that makes it a whole different vibe. You're not nervous, you're excited about it. Like I don't like the word to use. I don't like the word problem. Like this is a big problem. If you change that for a challenge, I've done that for probably the last 15 years of my life. Just change some words around. It's a different mindset, and it absolutely does help. I think it does help.
I don't use the word problem anymore. I use the word issue.
Yeah.
Issue just sounds better to me.
Yeah. So there you go.
Problem just sounds pretty negative. Issues are issues, and you're always going to deal with issues.
Problem sounds negative, and challenges can be overcome.
Yeah.
Like the T-bar. I broke it over you could easily break a T-bar over your knee if you put enough effort into it.
I'd like to see you break a Bigfoot over your knee. That would be impressive.
I don't know. I got a titanium knee now, I think. So maybe I got a chance.
Well, it was funny. It's funny we're doing the next two issues we're doing. The next two shows we're doing, one is on pressure and the other one is on vacations. And this story has a little of both of it. So I was on vacation last week and Bum found out, you're on vacation. And he goes, man, just all I need help is that first coat. Okay. The T-barn. It was like 1,600 foot, tons of rooms. It was one of those, had 4 bedrooms, but every bedroom had a little hallway to it also. Mm-hmm. So, and then there was a big great room and kitchen. Everybody knows the deal. I'm not telling anything that anybody doesn't know. But we've been in drought conditions around here. We have not had a lot of rain, and this is supposed to be the wet season. This is when coating's supposed to get a little easier. Floors have been dry all winter. Anyways, I was feeling some pressure. I
Mm-hmm.
was definitely feeling pressure. That sealer was setting up. I mean, there was not a lot of not a lot of time, and we've all had those jobs where, man, this is just so. One of the ways that we started dealing with the pressure was really setting in on preparation and what was our next step. What was the next step? Having that all planned out, and a lot of the planning took away from what could have been, a real bad pressure cooker. People can always tell too when I'm starting to feel some pressure. Is I go silent. I go in silent mode where people are like, "You okay? Yep, yep, yep." Don't want to talk
Mm-hmm.
because. So that is one of the ways that I will deal with pressure rather than talking it out. Just I go stone silent.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Um,
job came out. The job came out awesome.
nice.
But I mean, it was one of those like there was some built-in desks and lots of toe kicks and little pantries and everything. And we did more pre-coding of different sections. It was actually we started laughing about it, like, oh my god, this is crazy. But
Mm,
it all turned out really good.
beautiful. Um, you said something there that to me is how I also deal with stress. Is that I find that I over prepare because I don't want to have to deal with stress. I'd rather over prepare and put the work in ahead of time than deal with the stress, during the job or whatever I'm doing. Um, and also, you kind of know what triggers you. You know what I mean? Like I hated doing stain samples towards the end. I've talked about that before. I didn't have the patience for it because that's not a technical thing. That's a personality thing. That's subjective. So yeah, my brothers would do that instead of me because I don't have time for nonsense. Pick a color, let's go. So I wasn't the guy to do that. But so finding what triggers you, I think is knowing that ahead of time, I think helps. And also, you know what? Embrace the stress. Um, I've said it before. Pressure is a privilege, and I really do believe that. You know what I mean? So there's somehow in your life, you've got to figure out how to deal with this in a positive way. Look, I've got friends. You see, and here's the thing: that when you see a man that's 70 years old and 75 years old who's yelling and screaming at everybody, that's an idiot, because you've gone through your entire life and you haven't figured it out. You know what I mean? As I've gotten older, I don't express my opinion hardly anymore to anybody
Well,
outside of
you're a
work,
director.
outside of work,
You're
outside of work, because I don't people. Who cares what I think? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I don't have to give people my opinion anymore. No, who cares? And I don't need to get in an argument of the lowest form of argument or discussion which is opinion. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's your opinion. It's my opinion. I don't need to argue about that, or even I don't care anymore. So that's kind of what as you get older, and we talk to some of these really great floor men today that we're going to have on the podcast. We're going to play later today. Um, Seems like they were kind of in the same vein. As they've gotten older, they've gotten smarter about it. And so if you're younger and doing floors and the stress of the schedule and all these different things, and every job is, and believe me, I felt the same way. I mean, people say, well, it's not heart surgery, but it felt like it. You know what I mean? It felt like it to me at
sometimes
times.
I'd rather be. Yeah, the
Yeah,
finish is drying quick. I wish I
yeah,
was operating on somebody.
yeah. He's just going to die if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
But this
this
is
is
my floor.
this is the floor.
But I think for your own health's sake, figure a healthy way to to learn to deal with this. It's a coping skill, just like anything else is a skill. If you don't invest time into it or just kind of understand why you do things a certain way, it's good for you. It's good for your family. It's good for your coworkers. Also, if you're a perfectionist, and the problem is in this trade, Rob, is you almost have to be a perfectionist in this trade, and it sets you up for pressure and stress. You have to realize that every job is not going to be perfect, and you have to accept some amount of mistakes, and let some things go, and that is hard to do. So I think there's
But you know what I say in my classes? Everybody knows, not the rising boat thing. Chasing perfection, we will catch excellence.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, working with my kid has definitely upped my game, because I'm like, oh, he's not gonna like this. He's a perfectionist. I don't know where it came from, but he is a perfectionist. So that job I was talking about where I was working with him, and I said, oh, my way of dealing with stress is I go silent. That's not how we started out the job, though, especially as it started to get tougher. We had stopped before we started the really the big main areas and everything, and there was a lot of communication between us. Like I said, all right, here are the 7 different areas we're gonna do before, and he noodled it, and he looked at me and he goes, yeah, that's a good idea, we'll do. So it wasn't like I just didn't do anything, but there was a lot of communication. And then once we got going, that's when I got silent.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun because I was pushing the hell out of him, because he, being the perfectionist, he kept wanting to look, like in a feather. I go, no, let's go, kept pushing him. So it was pretty funny to see, because like I said, he's a perfectionist, and I'm like, we don't have time to make this perfect. We just got to get it down, trust the process. Another one we talk about in the school. But there was a lot of pre-communication. Once we got going, now I just settled into it.
You said something in a podcast a long time ago that this I'm going to do air quotes, friend Peter, allegedly, that we think exists.
He's going to beat your ass, man.
Yeah. Right.
He doesn't like the way you treat me on these shows.
Okay. You said he was like the king of vacuuming, and that you just let him do it. I think delegating to like my brother Doug is a perfectionist about some things, and you just learn to all right, well that's let him do that, because he's not going to be happy if I do it. So while he's doing that, maybe it's more productive if I do something else, because that's his thing right there. He's that guy. Maybe he's the edger guy. Nobody can. If he starts, someone else edges and he's standing on the floor and he sees swirl marks, he's going to go through the roof. So maybe he's that guy. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you something else. And I was guilty of this, by saying this one simple 2-letter word, no, can eliminate a tremendous amount of stress in your life. I sometimes book too many jobs. I mean, you know what I mean? But without time in between, as you know, I wanted every job in the world. That's my fault, and that's stress I'm putting on the whole crew when I did that, and I have to recognize it. I have to own that. I think saying no and why you don't say no. I think you maybe have to examine that sometime. Maybe it's just because you're doing it out of guilt or obligation, or you're a people pleaser type of guy. You just want everybody to be happy, and then you end up eating all the stress. So there's a lot of it is a big deal. I mean, I think it's an important episode because it goes hand in hand and parcel with this job, and you have to be able to figure this one out. And because there's not a paycheck behind it and whatever, I mean, maybe it's not tangible every time. It's very important nonetheless. And I think it's important that you have to come to some kind of arrangement in yourself, your makeup, on how you deal with it.
I would like to see how you delegate your stress to the other guys. That's a good one. How you lay that off on them too.
I start with yelling. Yeah. Then throw things. Yeah. Then kick things. That's the 3-step process.
I wish I had seen the T-bar flying out the door.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
do agree with what you said, though. Embrace the stress because it's going to make you better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
It's going to make you better. You just can't let it eat you alive, but it will
No.
definitely make you better.
And you also talk about eating you alive. You can't. You gotta not have that voice in your head criticizing yourself for mistakes and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You take on a lot of responsibility when you do this job. There is 100 different steps in doing a floor. Every step is critical. None of them can be overlooked. You can't take a shortcut on anything. At least, it seems like some of the other guys can when you go bid jobs and there's swirl marks and it seemed like they got paid and they got away with it. For some reason, you can't. You know how that works. But by doing that, because here's what happens too: when you get into that mode, then it kind of becomes like you start making bad decisions when you start doing that. When you get stressed out and you get in that, or you can get into a panic mode, and you just have to tell yourself, "Hey, I've been here before. We'll get through it. We'll handle it. We've experienced a lot of different stressful situations before, and take a deep breath and don't go into panic mode, and just kind of talk yourself out of it." So
You need confidence.
yes,
You need the
yes.
confidence. I
Mhm.
got this. I got this.
Mhm.
Well,
Yep.
the duck, right? He looks smooth
Uh,
under the duck, and underneath he's
mhm.
paddling like crazy.
I think you have to do something else too. I think this is important, and I recognize this. Um, when you get past it and you succeed, I think you need to stop and take a minute and congratulate yourself. Just even if it's just a little, hey, you know what, we did this, man, and then kind of walk the steps on why. I always want to. I always. It's very. That's why I took notes so often. I wanted to always remember what led to the success and why it was successful and what we did and what were my concerns. I'll even put that in. If you go back and look at my notes, is I was worried about X, and then I did the boom, boom, boom. And so even if you never read the notes, that's why when you're a teacher, or if you really want to get good at something, teach it to someone else. Because when you start teaching it to someone else, you'll realize how much you know. You know what I
Let
mean?
me
You'll
tell you
say,
something. When I get back on the ice someday, I'm going to be an all-star. Now that I coached hockey so long, I wish that somebody had coached me the way that I coached everybody else.
yeah,
I'd have been a superstar. I completely agree with you. You want to learn more about what you're doing, teach or coach, and then all of a sudden things start. Well, I know I do floors better
hmm
since I started being an instructor. I definitely do a better job with my floors just from actually practicing what I preach,
yeah.
not not cutting around things.
If you've never done it before and you talk to someone who's not in the trade, how to do a floor, and you start explaining everything, and then you start realizing all these details and all these little things that come around, I think you will impress the hell out of yourself when you relay it back to somebody else who's never done it before, because there's so many steps and it becomes second nature to you that man, it's a ton. And I think for me, it was when I started teaching that I've never taught it near as much as you. Obviously, I moved on quicker. I didn't get, you know, I mastered that in just I don't know, a few
Just
few
just
classes, and
kept just kept going, right?
just went on.
Just
But
kept moving on.
yes, but in that short amount of time, I was like, wow, it's amazing, and how much you learn about yourself and the trade and everything, and it's kind of cool. So,
Well, think about when you're showing somebody how to run a big machine.
you think about it,
I am thinking about it.
okay?
And I've had guys who've worked with me and started working with me, and they're like, "Oh, he's doing this, he's doing that wrong." And I'm like, you know what? To really run a big machine properly, there's 12 things we're telling them.
Mhm.
I go, if you tell them 12 things at a time, I'll give them 2 or 3 things to start with. Here are the 2 or 3 things I want you to do. And then once they get that down, they get a little time in, you know what I mean? They get a little muscle memory. Then I'll add another 2 or 3 things. And then another couple of things. Because it's amazing when you start breaking down, when you're teaching people about, operating the equipment correctly and direction and all footprint, all that stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot that's going on there that you've been doing it so long, you just turn the machine on and go.
Mhm.
But
Uh,
go ahead.
I met a rep one time, different company, where we ended up on one of the schools on the same panel, and we're just getting to know each other and everything, and that backgrounds and stuff. And he told me he was a hardwood floor man before he got into to sales, what have you. I said, okay, whatever. I didn't think anything about it. Then it came time to sand the floor. Rob, I'm not making it up. He got behind a big sander, and in 3 steps, I said out loud to myself, "Nope,
No.
that guy ain't a floor man."
Who is he? Tell me who he is.
I'm not gonna say.
You got it. Yeah,
well,
tell
I'll
tell
tell
the
you.
world.
I'll tell you who he is. But yeah, so there's so many things I think we don't even realize. There's so many, and gosh, there's so many small, and there's that's why it's hard to hire somebody. If you're really good at your craft and you care about it, it's so hard because there's so many little things. Even vacuuming with the grain instead of vacuuming against the grain, in case the thing on the edge on the vacuum falls off and you slides across it. At least you're going with the grain. The little things when you're running the buffer and you listen, you don't have your headphones on, because if you hear one of those flaky boards and a quarter saw, you hear as it goes across. How do you explain that to somebody? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's so many things that go into this, many small things that add up to getting a check at the end of the job and making it be successful. So, all right.
Hey, one more question. So I know how you dealt with stress when you got done. You threw the T-bar out the door. I always love that story. But when you got home, any ways that you dealt with stress?
I could always leave it at home. I'm at home. I could always.
Oh, lucky Judy.
Yeah.
Just give her all the stress and then move on.
For the most part, I was, and I am so very, very fortunate, because on my personal side, I have a charmed life. I'm very lucky. Me and my wife get along great, so we never have any real stress on that side of my life. You know what I mean? All my stress was business related. A little family stress, but I was able to beat him up. But anyhow, other than that, no.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, we got some some of the interviews we did. It was great. We got some really great answers to how different guys in our industry deal with the stress. So I think everybody's going to enjoy that.
And these are very successful, very good craftsmen, very good businessmen. So I'm really stoked that we got a chance to talk to these guys. So why don't we just go ahead and roll that?
Well, for me, things are different. After being in business so long, I've been able to not allow the customer to dictate how the pricing is going to go. We kind of come up with a plan of what they're looking for. I don't let them, if it's a sand and finish, then I'll ask them, what do they, expect from the floor? What are they thinking as far as color goes? How long do they plan on staying there? And then I can price the amount of coats that I'm going to apply, or the procedure that we're going to do. But majority of the customers are long-time customers of mine. So they're repeat or higher end referrals. So it makes it a lot easier that when we go in there, we're basically talking about, what their needs are, and which rooms we're going to do, and then whether we're doing them natural or staying in. So it makes it a lot easier. And then when we give them a price, sometimes they may not even look at the estimate. They'll just put it to the side. We'll continue our conversation, and then they'll basically say, okay, when are you available? So I've gotten away from how much a square foot question, because when they ask me already how much a square foot, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be their guy. I'll be like 100% sure that I'm out. That's how, yeah. So, because I always ask them, you're driving a car. Did you ask the car guy how much the car is? Or is it the kind of car that you're looking for and that's why you're at the car dealership? So I kind of need to gauge their expectations on what their needs are versus how much it is a square foot.
It's tough. It's a juggle. You have to really, but at the end of the day, you really just have to just relax and take one day at a time.
Yep.
Like I have problems keeping up with phone calls, and I'm kind of the do-it-all guy. I'm the estimator, the secretary, the payroll guy, but I just really try not to bite off more than I can chew, and a faithful guy, so I rely a lot on that, and just one day at a time, and try to keep work, and my family's very special to me, so I keep them, but they're involved too. So
I like your style.
I think a lot of it is about perspective, understanding that not everything is going to go well every single time. Not that you're not going to make the effort to try to do the best that you can, run the crews the best that you can, give your customer the best product, but just knowing that there are things that are going to go wrong, and then just knowing that you have the experience and the knowledge to be able to deal with that, while at the same time that not everything is life and death. That in my younger years, everything like I wanted to make sure that the job went well. I wanted to make sure that my customers were 100% happy. That and with that, there's a lot of pressure associated with that. So I feel like as I've gotten older, I've also gotten a little more perspective and realized that although what we do is important, it's not the most important thing in the world. And when issues do come up, you deal with them as best you can, as professional as you can, but just keep in mind that it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. I'm a beekeeper. I go out in my bee yard after work and I just watch the bees come in and out and fly. Carefree and just enjoying their day, doing work so they can make it through the winter. Well, just like us sometimes. Yeah, you have to be calm around the bees. If you're mad or you're aggravated, you start making stupid moves. And the bees tell you when you make a stupid move by stinging you in the arm.
Really?
Or the face, or whatever the case may be.
Wow.
So you just have to be really quiet and just calm, and it's kind of like my little meditation.
Meditation. That's a good one. I was lucky, my father taught me how to meditate when I was young, to deal with headaches actually, and I've carried that over into my adult life, and meditation and just concentrating on your breathing, really. You'd be surprised what you can do by trying to put everything else out of your brain, concentrate on breathing, and just meditate and not think about anything else for 5 minutes. You can get your blood pressure down. I've seen it in action because I've gone to my cardiologist and I've done it in the office. A lot of times you go to your doctor and they take your blood pressure and it's super high. You're like, oh, what's wrong with you? You got high blood pressure. Well, you really don't. Usually it's anxiety just from being at the doctor's office. And I found that through meditation, you could really lower your blood pressure big time. So I've really used that anytime I've had like extreme anxiety. And I've had issues with extreme anxiety because I have epilepsy too. So that combined with epilepsy actually created problems for me too. So really controlling that was like essential, or I probably wouldn't be here.
That's the hard part of this business, but I try to take a little time off when I can, with my kids, go, do a bicycle rides, walk on the beach, when I have a chance. That's how I deal with with the stress, trying to forget a little bit about the floor for a second.
Okay, thanks, guys. And thanks for all the guys that we were interviewed. I mean, there were some great tips there, as I said, from some really great floor guys, high character guys, man, great craftsmen, great businessmen, every single one of them. The industry's better for having them. So thank you to those guys.
Yeah,
And
you know what? I just want to check in again with Bill Powell. He's like the third guy I've met in the industry who's a bee guy. I met two guys, one guy in Ohio, one guy down in, I think the other guy was down south someplace. When I was in sport, they were bee guys. And Bill's a bee guy. And when he came into training we did in Albany, he brought honey in for everybody. It was stuff from his hive. So that was pretty cool. That would be the last thing I would think. How do you handle stress? I handle stress by surrounding myself with bees.
I'm trying to find this. I watched a movie on bees not long ago, and it was absolutely positively fascinating. And I have zero desire. I had no desire to know anything about bees at all. It meant nothing to me. But the movie was fascinating. And I also, as I said, I spent like a 4-hour drive to go fish with somebody, and we 4-hour drive back with the same guy, who also messed with bees or whatever, had bees. And it was unbelievable how much he was able to learn about them bees, and how every one of them had a certain responsibility, and how it's unreal. It's just absolutely fascinating. So, yeah, I agree. All right, Rob, thank you very much as always. It was great to see you. Spend a couple days with you. Always a pleasure. And
Yes, sir. Good seeing you too.
So this has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.